given the generally cautious nature of most judges. Flexibility over strategy was essential because saving clients had to be the priority. Human beings were not just means to an end. Yet he also cared about pushing the law in the direction of justice, so other people in desperate straits could also benefit. While Bright was certainly skillful in front of appellate judges, those who knew him best felt that it was before a jury that he truly thrived. Bright had a knack for conveying how broken people could fall through the cracks in the criminal justice system, and his barely contained sense of outrage and fierce attention to detail earned him the respect of judges and adversaries alike. He had earned his reputation by taking cases that no one else wanted, representing clients that society had long ago discarded. By plunging himself into his client's whole life and pulling out all the stops, he had won cases few lawyers would dare tackle. Even so, McWilliams' appeal faced long odds. Unlike his past trips to the Supreme Court, Bright did not have a compelling story about official misconduct to tell. There was not a racist district attorney who manufactured unrepresentative juries. Instead, in representing McWilliams, Bright was pleading for the life of an intellectually disabled black man convicted of killing a convenience store clerk during a robbery. These kinds of cases were made even more difficult because bigotry and suspicion rendered the issue of intellectual disability volatile. There was no telling whether a judge or juror would see such a condition as a reason for mercy, or instead as an excuse to treat a person more harshly. Did it make someone less morally culpable, or was it proof that the individual represented a future danger? Bright had come to Washington to tell the justices that even when someone has been found guilty of a brutal and senseless crime, an accurate sentencing process still mattered. Whenever evidence suggests that a defendant might have brain damage, basic fairness requires he be given a mental health expert. As his time ticked away at oral argument, Bright realized he had to somehow hang on to the liberal justices, who had dwindled to just a handful, and find a way to convince someone else to join the fold. If he could manage that, he might still eke out a ruling that would extend his client's life for a few more months and help other people with a potential intellectual disability. If he failed to scale that mountain, then brain damaged or not, McWilliams would lose his life. Stephen Brooks Bright entered the arena of death penalty politics at a critical moment in American history. Bright came of age during the tumult of the late 1960s and early 70s. As a teenager, he heard the pleas for justice at home and abroad, as fellow citizens spilled into the streets to demand an end to racial segregation, and students occupied campus buildings to protest American imperialism in Southeast Asia. At first, his tool of choice consisted of social activism. But as America's conservative mood deepened, Bright became disillusioned with electoral politics and instead became a convert to legal liberalism, believing that judges had to curb democracy's excesses by enforcing individual rights. Trained as an advocate for the poor, he took up the cause lawyer's primary instrument, harnessing the power of the courts to spur social change. In that respect, he resembled radical lawyers like Thurgood Marshall, William Kunstler, and Bryan Stevenson. Like his counterparts, Bright sought to unleash social change by representing unpopular clients, reviving legal principles from within the political order, and leaving behind organizations to carry on the work. Bright and his allies began their fight for equality under the law at a time when headwinds were the strongest and changes in criminal justice policy were widening existing inequities. Regardless of party, most politicians in the 1980s and 90s proved to be largely indistinguishable in their demands for more statutory offenses, longer sentences, and expansive use of the death penalty. Democrats like Ed Koch and Bill Clinton sounded exactly like Republicans Rudy Giuliani and George H.W. Bush as they worked across the aisle to push ever harsher criminal laws. The war on crime turned into the war on drugs.